Testing. Okay. Alrighty. So, greetings, guys, gals, non-binary pals, and welcome back to the stream. Or if you're on YouTube at time of viewing this, welcome to the channel. For anyone not familiar, if you go to the Adventurin YouTube channel, that's where all the back episodes of the book club live. I'm in the process of uploading them and stuff, so every like 2 days another batch goes up until they're all there. So, hi, how you doing? How is everybody today? If you hear like scissor noises or papers rustling or whatnot, I'm pinning some pattern pieces on felt over here, which, you know, if you're not familiar, hi, my name's Rain. I fiddle with things all the time, so either I do this or I end up shredding something. So, the better option, really. Yeah. So, as you can see, actually, okay. Let me just. It's like. Okay. I just forgot to post that the stream was live, so one sec. There we go. Okay. That's taken care of. Now, anyone have observations or what have you before we kind of dive into this? And yeah, I'm gonna just have my phone with me for the duration because that's where the notes are. Because computer doesn't like me to switch between screens too much. So there we go. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything. Not seeing anyone in the chat really. So we'll just start having a chat and go from there. Sound good? Sound good. Okay. Alright. So, as you might be able to see from the little graphics on screen right here, we've got chapters 7 and 8 that are being discussed for this round. Now, as a bit of a recap, at present, as of the end of chapter 6, we've got Bran, who is also known as the Painted Man, because tattoos, who is the head of a band of mercenaries. And for whatever reason, is like kind of sees the people of Seven Waters, Leiden's parents specifically, as like the villains of his story, as it were, you know? But we don't as yet know why. And as much as where was I going with that? 1 second. Just full disclosure, right? I'm doing better than I was this time last week, which the reason that last week's stream was canceled was one of our cats died and was not in the best of headspaces to talk to people for an extended period of time, you know? So, yeah. Anyway. But I've noticed that, like, in the intervening week, my concentration's kind of not been the best since then, as you might expect. Anyway. So, where was I? Painted Man thinks that the populace of Seven Waters is, like, essentially the reason that he, his life was wrecked, essentially. At this point, Leiden is she 15 or 16? I can never remember, because Neve is 19. I'm not seeing it. I want to say she's 15. She might be 16 though. So anyway, so where we left off in 6, on the way back from seeing her sister off to her new home after a forced wedding, because her sister Neve fell in love with her uncle, who didn't know that he was her uncle, and a lot of them have since still not seen fit to inform anybody that that was the reason. It's just, he wasn't a suitable match, so therefore reasons, and she had to get married off. But yeah, so now Kieran, the uncle, the youngest of the siblings, and son of Una, who, was the one essentially masterminding, as far as we're aware, the entire, like, set of problems that happened at Seven Waters, like, 20 years prior to the events in Son of Shadows, or Son of the Shadows. So essentially, the events that took place in Daughter of the Forest where was I going with that? Um, trying to establish a timeline, and the rest of it's just not wanting to compute. Okay, yeah. hmm Basically, if I can summarize this, basically, um, Leiden, gets kidnapped by the Painted Man, who she names Bran, after some of the old legends, because he, like, everyone in the mercenary troop doesn't have names, or like they might have names, they might remember their names, but because they are now nameless people in a band of mercenaries, and from the sounds of it have been told that they don't matter, they don't use their given names. They use names that they have taken on, or to a degree been assigned, I suppose. Which, fair, fair. uh, but um, where we leave the characters at the end of 6, Leiden and Bran had sex a couple times after Evan? Yeah. Yeah, after Evan, who she was essentially like kidnapped to try and heal, dies, and they bury him. No? Yeah. I can't remember if it's burial or cremation, but after his funerary rites. And um hey, how you doing, honeycomb? How are your fab selves? Thank you. Thank you for the subscribe. You are much appreciated. Much appreciated indeed. Oh, there we go. We're making tiny bats and um stuff. You came in as I'm attempting to do a recap and get my brain under control, so you honestly haven't missed much. So, yeah. I totally get the whole alert thing, though. They, like, between Twitch alerts being weird sometimes and the Discord stuff being kind of weird, like, I get it. We're okay, yay, tiny bats. Awesome. Yeah. So, yeah, after that, we didn't miss much. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's been, it's mostly been me trying to stop and restart the thought process, because words and stuff and whatever. So, yeah. No, you're good. You're good. Alright. Yeah. Yeah. So, essentially, um, at by the end of 6, we know that there's some situation that happened that caused Bran to see Hugh and Serica as, like, the reason that his life was horrible, essentially. And his birthright was stolen. But not the why or anything. Words are hard, probably why animals don't talk human, too much bother. Exactly. Like, they might understand it some, but, like, the talking part, not so much. Which, I get. I feel that on, like, all of the levels. you know? I do. Yeah. So, yeah, essentially, because, Leiden needs to go home to take care of her mom, who's dying of presumably cancer. That's the best that I can figure at this point. And because he's having a issue that um, her parents are who they are, uh, sends her off, and on the way back, she runs into Dog being attacked, and he's injured severely enough that the only way to make the situation any kind of better is to put him out of his misery, which is fun times. So now she has to deal with the aftermath of that, on top of everything else. And the chapter ends with her sending out a mental message to her brother Sean to come get her. Decided to rename Chapter 7 in which Layden makes dumb choices. Yeah, basically, yeah. Yep. That and, like, we kind of saw the creep factor, to a degree on with Theon before, but dude. I know it's supposed to be dramatic and all that, but like there are so many. Like, okay. In retrospect, right? I can see why. I'm just put the sharp pointy thing down over here instead of waving it around. Like, okay. So, in retrospect, I get why, like, teenage me remembers this book far and away more than the other two. It's like, I know there's 6 at this point, but the original trilogy and the trilogy that I've actually read already, like, I fully forgot the first one existed, but like I know the plotline for this one. Like, it's so dramatic in so many stupid ways. And like the characters, like, why? Come on. And it's interesting, right? So, we as the viewer who have, like, we also found ourselves questioning why we like the series so much. Yeah, right. It's like, oh god. Okay. Of the things that I read that I was a massive fan of at the time, I know this series is one of the least, like, potentially problematic ones. Like, there's this and certain books in the Descendants of Merlin one. But there's other ones that I remember having issues with parts of it at the time. So I could just imagine what, like, present day me would think about it. If, like, 16-year-old me was like, can you not? especially because the majority of them are this time period. So there's, fun things with hygiene and whatever else, and like 3 cheers for epic misogyny and all that. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. Oh god. Anyway. Yeah. So there I don't know. One sec. Where's the notes so that I can actually make sense of what words are? Okay. So I I get her not saying anything after like they find her and stuff, like for Leiden. Like I understand, especially with how everyone reacted to seeing Neve and Kieran as someone who doesn't know the backstory of like they're freaking related and he's her uncle, even though none of the parties were informed of that because like the parental generation inhabiting Seven Waters are all a bunch of dumbasses that like can't figure out that maybe informing all parties involved of something like that might be of benefit. If for nothing else, then like, yeah, I know you're going through some stuff right now, but like, there's a good reason why that's a bad idea there, and y'all should just take a second, chill. Like, no. Let him go somewhere else. You're fine. Ah, no, it's just like angst for days. We are pro paying attention when using the sharpened slicing. Yeah. We have to remind ourselves Layden doesn't know. Right? It's like, oh god. Like, from the perspective of someone who isn't aware of that factoid. Because, like, I don't know, 60%, 60-70% of the people on screen are aware of that at this point. When it's, like, the family, right? And like, in the other one, like, in Daughter of the Forest, and to a degree in this, like, Connor's pretty cool. But and I get that he's trying to, I don't know, operate within some kind of parameter of, like, what the magical, mystical whatevers have decreed that is supposed to happen or whatever. But when part of your family is trying to actively date slash marry slash hook up with another part of your family, you might want to inform, you know, the lot of you why that's a bad idea, you know? Serica said something about being afraid of telling the kids about the incest would bring on greater evil, and we wonder what she thinks will happen. Right? Like, okay. I understand if the fear is something like, because I know sometimes, if there's a situation that you're looking at retrospectively through a different lens because you didn't have all the information to begin with, you might not be able to process it, and it can eat away at your mental health, and sometimes bad things happen from that. But if your daughter falls in love with somebody and the only reason that you give that they can't be together is like, no, it's a bad match, you have to go marry this other creepy dude, like, now. Wouldn't that cause more problems down the line? Like, if you're not, like, that seems like a time when sharing the info might, be a viable thing. Or at least, like, partially sharing it, or, like, some kind of something. Not just, oh, no, you can't do that. Because A, bad form. B, again, telling the teenager who already doesn't want to pay attention to what you have to say that, like, you can't do the thing. And what? Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like, we usually find having all the information helpful, like, oh, that makes sense, and we can process that now. Exactly. Like, really? And from the sounds of it, like, from what Hugh and Serica and Liam have all said, the reason that they can't tell anyone is that Connor said not to because a big bad would happen if something. But he's getting his info, from the sounds of it, from, like, the Lord and Lady of the Forest, who are Fae, and seem to have their own, like, weird uh, agenda going down. So, like, I don't know if it's me analyzing the situation or if it's me remembering something from the third book, but it just, at that point, it just seems like, the powers that be are playing with the pawns and stuff, And it, come on. Okay. Alright. Yeah. What you gonna do with the tiny bats? I've got a um I've got a booth or part of a booth at a craft slash info fair thing on Sunday, and one of my friends did a pre-order for 16 tiny bats. So, yeah, it's taken a couple of days to get into the headspace where I can actually do that and stuff. But yeah, it's a fun time though. So far we've got one that's burgundy and gold, and one that's gold and burgundy, and we've got the brown and gold and brown and stuff, and we've got the white and brown, because if I'm gonna go to the trouble of making tiny bats, actually I need some tan. I need to find the tan. But if I'm gonna go to the trouble of making tiny round type bats, at least some of them are gonna be like Honduran leaf bats, because like, what's the point otherwise, Because they're adorable little dudes. And they live in rolled up leaves, and they're cute, and they're just generally awesome sauce. Yeah. And they don't take all that much time to do either, which is good. But yeah. Honduran leaf bats are for the win. Exactly. They are adorable. Okay. Alright. So, yeah. So the chapter kind of opens, sort of, kind of, ish, with, Leiden getting, kind of pressured to talk about the guys that took her, and that's a whole other, like, dynamic element in and of itself of, like, she was abducted for 2 weeks, and fell in love with the head of the band of mercenaries that kidnapped her. Which, again, as a teenager, like, oh yeah, that tracks. As an adult, not so much. But alright. And Biden makes a candle which simply screams painted man to anyone who's paying attention. Right? I made notes about it. Heard it, like, replayed that, like, 4 times. And it just registered that she's replicating the spirals. Which would be why there's spirals on the candle. Wow, okay. Really with it today, apparently. Whew. Alright. So there we go. Yeah, so Leyden is, a master of, deception and, intrigue and all of that, obviously. Because does the big brain move of just, like, practically taking out a billboard in candle form, really, on that. With the thing just fully wrapped in protections and can't catch everything. I know. Still flings me sometimes. But like just fully swathed in protective measures and things, right? And Sirica knows that something's going down, but it's just like, yes, you're doing a thing. Okay, cool. And it is interesting in there because I honestly don't know what part was 7 and what part was 8 because at least for the audio that I was listening to, it just kind of ticked over. I'm pretty sure Sirica knows exactly who fathered Layden's child and is just keeping her mouth shut. Yeah, it like presumably, yeah. Whether like okay, I have to wonder though for that, like there's a good chance that she knows that it's the head of the mercenary band that was hanging around and stuff. If for nothing else, then like the guards died. So obviously like Leyden was kidnapped by someone or a group of someones who knew how to fight and weren't necessarily in a position to just rock up and be like, hey, yeah, can we, like, get an assist, maybe? So, yeah. Whether or not she knows who the guy is remains to be seen, but There we go. But yeah. I do find it interesting too, the idea that like Leiden, like when he asks and stuff, Leiden tells Hugh, or her dad, that the like one of the reasons that the father of her kid um doesn't seem to really want to have anything to do with her is that Hugh and Serica like kind of ruined his life, and just the well, when I left, he must have been like an infant. There's nothing that I would have done that had anything to do with that. You know, like maybe leaving might have had something of interest. I don't know. That might have had some kind of like catalyst type situation. Maybe? No? Possibly? Hypothetically? I don't know. Of course not. That would be preposterous. Yeah. Um. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. What am I doing? Clearly can't see how his leaving could have caused it, to be fair. At this point, we don't either. Yeah, I remember there was an event, and that spawned some other things. And if I'm remembering right, there was like an intentional smear campaign sort of situation by somebody in order to turn him against um Harrowfield, but I don't necessarily remember the specifics on that one. So, yeah. It's not so much there's a thing that he did that caused X as much as certain events happened and then someone twisted it in the retelling. You know? But yeah. Yeah, so we've got dog's wolf claw on the candle, and dogwood, and yarrow, and juniper, and apple, and lavender, and a raven's feather, and like, dude. You turn the candle into a lighthouse. Sounds up Richard the Uber Creep's alley. Maybe. It might have been, honestly. It might have been. I can't remember who had the final say in the manipulation part of it, but that doesn't sound like it's out of the realm of possibility. Let me just check something. And okay, so the first time that Leiden has morning sickness, she goes out and throws up under a rowan bush. Now, the rowans were just part of the landscape, right? That's why the certain like sacred trees and plants and stuff have that position in the mythos, like because they're just there. They're part of the general awareness, the general knowledge. They're part of the everyday landscape, so that's a thing that is seen and interacted with all the time. But also, the Rowan is the tree of life in Celtic mythology, or one of the trees of life, and is associated with courage, wisdom, and protection. Sacred because just there. I mean, it is though. Like, there's people who, you know, I'm doing this kind of work, so therefore I have to have like these 5 different herbs that correspond to this phase of Jupiter that's in the 5th house with whatever. And then there's people that's like, I work with the rose because it lacks me. And we're friends. So I'm gonna just do that. Like, both are valid. Like, I'm somewhere in the middle, somewhere, but just because there are certain plants that have particular properties, and if I'm doing the medicine route, like, they're all great and stuff, but if I need some kind of pain meds or something, I'm gonna be using something that has some pain med properties, not just like lavender or something. You know? Or like, I know there's someone based out of I want to say Wales. That might be wildly inaccurate. I don't remember. But is known for working specifically with you. Which, in certain circumstances, can be a very volatile plant, but also, like, alright, cool. Use a pretty awesome tree, so yeah, go for it. But yeah. Because, like, for Celtic-based, like, mythologies and traditions and stuff, it's far and away, like, an idea of connecting to the spirit of place and the animism of the surrounding environment that you're in. There's, obviously going to be some variation on that across the board, but when, like, most of my interaction with stuff has been some permutation of that, you know? So, reading that we have sacredness and rarity linked in our head. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I can see that, though. I can see that. Yeah. And there is a case to be made that, like, there's a lot of instances where something becomes sacred or becomes seen as sacred. It takes on that designation in a situation where whatever it is rare. But it also depends on, like, the context and stuff. But, totally get that. Totally get that. But yeah. And it also depends because, like, based on. Okay, just taking, like, contemporary practice and stuff, right? There's people who ascribe to the idea that in order to do any kind of working, you have to have, like, a specific type of, like, tool set, or it's not gonna work. Or a particular, like, exact set of parameters, essentially, or whatever you're trying to do will fail. Which is one way to look at it. I've never quite seen the point in doing it that way, because, reasons. That is definitely a framework that sometimes people are working within. But, it is what it is. What's the rest of that? Oh, yeah. I did find it kind of, like, funny, though, because Leiden is just going around collecting random pieces of fabric and stuff. Presumably to make some kind of, like, blanket or what have you for the kid that we know she's got, but no one else does. And then, like, Sirika just, like, rocks up with the dress, like, the blue dress that Marianne, spent, like, time embroidering and stuff, and if I'm remembering right, was gonna be hers, but because she was pregnant, she couldn't fit into it anymore. Does that sound right? With, like, embroidered bees and, like, random little insects and flowers and stuff, like, all over it and whatever. And that's, like, with the whole callback to, previous things and all that, with, like, she's showing up with that particular at a time when Leiden is getting ready to make what looks like a baby blanket, and pulls out the somewhat dilapidated blue dress that has the same kind of bee motif as Bran has on his arm. So yeah, the so between that and the whole, like, you ruined my life thing, certain pieces are starting to come together on that front. Yeah, the bee for the win. Like, okay, I get that the women folk would be more in tune with certain signs than perhaps the men folk would, just because, like, that's not a thing that the dudes in this particular storyline could personally go through, right? But they all live in a rural environment. There's animals around all over the place, right? So, how is literally no one but, like, the ladies in the kitchen, Sirika, and maybe, like, Connor's not even there for the majority of it, right? But, like, how the gender binary in these books is pretty rigid. It is. That's another thing that, like, I'm noticing, like, rereading this, and it's just like, oh, but it was, back in the day when X wasn't a thing. Like, it kinda was, though. Especially in an era, like, where there's, druids and shit, and stuff, and, like, it, just like the druid practices were being pushed out by Christianity, that was a thing too, so, whatever. But alright. Okay. Um, but yeah, so Layden is having like violent reactions to particular smells and stuff, to the point that everyone in the kitchens is just like, alright, I'm not gonna talk about anything, and like, that, we're cool, but like, I see you. But like, the whole dude population of the estate has no idea that she's pregnant somehow. I don't get it. I just have this note. It's like, for all he's well learned, Connor forbidding anyone from speaking of why Neve and Karen couldn't marry seems like a truly dumbass move. Like, it's like, see, dude, sir, sir, your family is in the middle of a situation that could be almost entirely avoided if you would just, communicate one little factoid about, hey, there's this thing, right? In in the words of one of my favorite snarky YouTubers, maybe we don't date our relatives? How about that? Yeah? How about that? Kieran? Yeah, maybe? Connor? Care to inform the masses, perhaps? Come on. And then, like, I don't know where 7 ended and 8 started, but, like, we're presumably in 8 at this point. I don't know. But there's, like, we see Layden go into a room and Simon is trying to get Simon. Wow. Nope. No. Sean. Not Red's brother from the previous book. There we go. Okay. We've got Sean trying to convince Liam to somehow contact and hire Bran's band of mercenaries to help fight off the Britons from the islands. Which is a choice. And, like, Layden's trying to figure out how to, no, that wouldn't work. He would never go for that without being like, yes, I know this dude and how his brain works because, that kid that I've got that y'all haven't heard about yet? Yeah. He's the dad. You know? And again, like, I get why she hasn't shared that particular factoid, because, you know, a whole estate full of dudes that seem to be real high strung about literally everything and going after the guy might not be the best of ideas. Because, like, A, death's all around, and B, like, you know, just the bad luck, really. Um, yeah. Yeah, I mean, Eamon would never go for it. Yeah, totally. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, no, he'd never go for it. I mean, Eamon, yeah, he'd never go for it. Totally. Uh-huh. Right? Like, Layden, um, I appreciate you attempting subtlety. It's not your strong suit. You might want to beef up that particular skill, because you're gonna need it for the foreseeable future. if you want to keep any part of this, you know, kind of secret. So just something to think about as a thing, you know. uh, um, and then we've got the ritual for. Wait, is it in paper? Layden's to-do list. Learn to keep secrets. Exactly. Like, I will give her credit for, you know, just out stubborning her entire family in order to, you know, keep people out of her head. Aside from Finbar, because he's a wild card and half swan still, so, you know, science. Yeah, obviously. Which, okay. Like, I can understand keeping secrets from the kids because, you know, whatever reason. But they whole ass just let people in the immediate family think that, like, one of the uncles just, like, drowned himself in the lake for, what, 15, 16 years, however old she is. Like, I can never remember if she's 15 or 16. But, like, so dude shows up and it's just like, wait, you died. No, actually, not really. No, not, not so much. Like, I think she's 16. Okay. But, because, like, I kept thinking that Neve was 18, and there was a 3-year difference. So it was throwing me off. So, yeah, okay. Neve's 19, so Leiden's 16. Got it. But yeah, it's like, I don't know. I don't know about that. Yeah. I know I'm gonna mispronounce it. I wrote it out phonetically, but we've got the ritual of Mianforwar, where it's gather under an oak tree and fruits of the season's good harvest are presented. So I'm guessing that it's Mabon, but known with a different name. We do kind of get not telling people about Finbar because dude faked his own death for a good reason. Yeah, no, totally. Totally. But like when people get like when like the kids got to a certain age or something, just like so you know, if you see someone with a wing, you're not like hallucinating. Like he's alive still. He's just, in hiding. When they're like, I don't know, 15 or whatever. But now it's just like, hey, so what? Oh, by the way, if you see this like random dude who might look slightly familiar, but you don't know where from, who's like a couple years older than y'all, he's related, so like maybe don't do anything, you know? Just things that could be avoided. You know? But yeah, so we've got an apple, a leafy cabbage, a handful of silken grain, a small flask of mead, cider, honey, fresh herbs, and then we have Leiden holding a glossy acorn. Because symbolism and the ancient oak tree, and she's holding the child of the oak tree, as it were, that's being planted in the soil of Seven Waters to continue the lineage. Haha. Because kids and stuff, you know? Can you stop scrolling back up? Thanks. Come on. And like I've just got a couple notes in here repeatedly about Fionn being a complete ass, just cause. So there's that. Just like I understand that in the time period that this is meant to take place in, women didn't really have autonomy exactly in a lot of contexts. Fiona's obviously some kind of abuser. Exactly. Like, you don't have that kind of a response without some kind of serious abuse. Like, yeah. In a complete personality shift. Um, And we don't see any, like, physical signs, quote unquote. But with that stark a contrast and mannerisms and, like, demeanor and everything in such a short period of time, because, like, they were only married for a couple of months, right? Because it was the wedding was the day before uh, Leiden was kidnapped, and she's like barely started showing.
I wanted to bring the time to your attention. It's 5.
Thank you much. But yeah, so it's only been like max a couple of months, and there's that dramatic a shift already. Oh. Excuse me. Um, to shift back a little bit, I know the stories in these books always have like a direct correlation and parallel to whatever's going down in the story, but it's always still like, ah, yes, that is this. Interesting. But, like, it. The idea, though, that there's this push for, we need to work with the mercenary. And the men are like, she's just depressed over Karen, and Fionn is too highly respected to be a problem. Ugh. Exactly. Like, dude, your kid, your niece, is visibly cringing when anyone in her family even approaches her. Even if she was mad at y'all, that's not normal behavior. Normal behavior is her ranting about you being an ass. Like, this right here, this right here is like someone's not being treated like a respected member of the household. That's what this is. So, come on now. But yeah, I do appreciate the origin stories for Seven Waters though, of like mercenary dude wanders off and can't find his friends, so like, okay, I'll keep going into the forest then because it looks cool. I don't know why I want to go into a forest, but like, okay, which that would that is me. Like, I have done that multiple times. So, alright. Feeling slightly called out by that, but alright. We're good. It's fine. Goes into the forest, meets the lord and lady of the forest, and gets permission to set up a house and stuff. But it's not like, oh yeah, you can set up a house. It's like, well, we need a protector of this place, so there you go. I don't know why I suddenly said my dearest, which is exactly what the fair folk want, but okay. Exactly. It's like, I have this weird urge to stay right here for the rest of time. I don't know why, but okay. At which point, again, what kind of weird, like, puppeteering situation's going down? Because from that, with that as the setup, it sounds like it was we need to have a kid born in X type of conditions. So therefore, hey, random dude who's hanging out in a forest, we want you to stay here so that your kids stay here and stuff. So therefore, you want to stay here, right? Yeah? Okay. Carry on. I don't know. I don't know. And really, I didn't pick up on any of that the first read through. I don't know if, like, the immediate, you sound suspicious is because I'm older or because I've rewatched, like, the entirety of Supernatural, like, 2.5 times. And I'm seeing a lot of parallels with how the Lord and Lady, the Fae in general, interact with the characters in this, and like the angels in Supernatural. Of just like, no, it's fine. You don't need the rest of the context. It's great. It's fine. It's fine. We get the feeling that his wife shouldn't have told him about the islands, much less how to get there. Yeah. It's one of those things that if you don't know how to get there, then you can't find them. But they're important, so you go to protect them. But if you didn't know how to find them and no one else knew how to find them, then they would have been safe without you having to go protect them, and then they wouldn't be taken because they wouldn't have ships and shit everywhere. That sounds like a logical situation, you know? With like, yeah, I don't know. Um, but yeah, the idea that it's like random mercenary dude and a presumably like otherworldly lady who's just like hanging out on a rock. Like, oh yeah, the lake's cool. Hi. Like that seems the island situation seems like a severe error in judgment though, especially with how dramatic an issue it became. Um and we like you finding parallels with Supernatural, by the way. Yeah. Like, haha. Okay. Interesting. Alright. Yeah. Yeah, it's honestly with stuff like that, it's like what was the source material that some of these stories was based on? Because there's a lot of things that I've read that, like, yeah, it's kind of formulaic to a degree, but there's a lot of things that I've read that's like, this sounds like this other thing. Is spontaneous or is influenced? I don't know. I don't know. You, Chelsea? Um, yeah. And then, like, after the Britons invade and take over the islands, uh, and the Rowan Woods are annihilated and stuff, which seems to parallel the period that Una was in power at Seven Waters and just like razed the forest to the ground, you know. And apparently, all the way back in like generations ago, the issues are stemming from Northwoods of Cumbria. It was an ancestor to like Richard the Creep dude. So it's like, well, there's a lot of lore about the general untrustworthiness of the Fae, slipperiness of supernatural beings. That is true. That is true. Um, so yeah, we've got a historical parallel between the ancestral lineage and contemporary, with Northwood still being an issue because obviously, um, and I'm trying to figure out. Trying to figure out how to deal with everything. And Connor's handed parsnip wine after telling this epic story, which, like, that is not a thing that I would have pegged as being a viable winemaking substance. Just putting that out there. But alright. That's cool, I guess. And then we've got Fion's judgmental, misogynistic ass that's like, wait, one sec. We've seen a lot of, anytime elemental magic is used, people claiming plagiarism from Avatar. Seriously? I want to scream that elemental magic has existed in many cultures for millennia before. See, as long as, like, okay, as much as I like Avatar, That's not the origin of elemental anything. It's just not. I appreciate that it exists and like the role that it's had in media and the hot takes from the fandom over the years and all that, but that's not a unique thing. It's just not. It's an interesting take on it, for sure. But like, it's like saying Star Wars is the first time that there's been things in space in a storyline. That's no, not really. Or that Harry Potter invented like the idea of a magical group of people in a school or otherwise. That's not a thing. Oh yeah, just the last bit for 8, right? So there's all of this. Connor's finished the story, and Fion's being his usual like abrasive self, and like has no care for his wife's like traditions or people or anything, or his wife in general, because being an abusive ass over there. And just I don't remember the exact line, but it's something like it's interesting how you believe like these fanciful stories when they don't have a basis in reality or something. I just have this note in here because Fion's family is Christian, and Seven Waters practices the old ways. So it's like, yeah, because Christianity makes so much more sense and is so much less fantastical than season and experiential based animism. Totally. Which I will own that I have a bit of a bias on that particular count because that's the tradition that I happen to follow. That said, you're rocking up into a place with, like, that's protected by a sacred grove of trees in the middle of a forest with multiple people in the company who have had actual conversations with the, like, fae beings, deity of place, the protectors of the area who live in the other world and sometimes pop in. And like there's a reciprocal relationship between the populace and their environment with like trackable analytical data and stuff based on generations of habitation in a particular estate space. And you coming in to that and like, it's so cute how like you believe in all of this stuff with the fantasy and things. I, however, make perfect sense because I believe in like some dude who I've never interacted with, who died somewhere else that I've never been, because some guy told me about him and stuff. Yay. Which, like, no shade if you are Christian, if you're following any of the other traditions, cool, yay, do you, awesome. But like, I would just ask that you have a little bit of self-awareness that like, basically all practices have some element of like magical, mystical shenanigans and stuff involved, so maybe don't look down on people who are doing that. just a thing. Just saying. But yeah, so that's the end of my notes for this. Yeah. But yeah. So, what do we think? Yeah, it. I don't know. Like, I appreciate that there's, on top of which, right? On top of which, the majority of the populace, from what I understand, um, even in areas that practiced Christianity at its onset at that point, still kept some of the old traditions. Just because that's what you do. Regardless of what your, like, religious affiliation is. Like, you honor the land, or the land stops giving you food. That's just how it be. You know? So. Yeah. I don't know. I wish the narrator didn't make all the male characters sound so like all patronizing, sententious blowhards, even when it's not in character. Yeah, I will say, like, that is one of the critiques that I can get behind for the audio. Like, it's like, it's a good recording, but also but also uh yeah. So, I don't know. Um, yeah. I don't know. Yeah. So, anyway. Any final thoughts or what have you on what we've got so far? The decision to send all the girls to Emmons, especially right after Layden, turn them down, is so dumb. Yeah, I forgot about that. Like, especially because, like, all of them know that Layden's pregnant at this point. And regardless of whether or not he's there in the immediate now or not, like, you're sending someone in a, I don't want to say fragile state because that tends to be indicative of like an emotional situation, but like I because the only words coming to mind are like fragile and compromised, and neither of those fit really. But sending someone who is um pregnant into a potentially hostile situation, and it's like, no, enough of that right there. Also delicate. Yeah, there we go. That's the words I was looking for. Uh, but also like, why couldn't they just stay there? Just like have like everybody just stay at Seven Waters. That seems like it would be a potentially logical course of action. You would think? I don't know. Maybe. But apparently not. So, I don't know. Because the plot demands drama. Seriously. Like, when the romance plot reads like a soap opera, I have questions. Which really, like, there's so many book plots that read exactly like some of the well-known soaps, but like it's cool because it's in book form, so it's fine. But like, if it's in show form, then it's like you're being weird and cringy. I don't know. I do not get the logic of it, but okay. Yeah. Alright. So, we got that. Any hypotheses for the future stuff, or do you want to just like let that ride for right now? Yeah, we better read a book. Words. Better read a book. For someone in our Archer comments tended to be on the theme of why did this happen to see besides the plot demanded. Yes. Yes. There's only so much that you can solve with like because reasons. And most of it is not the best. Oh, God. Yeah. Well, there's like we predicted there would be bloodshed over Leiden going to Emmons. Probably. As stupid as that whole subplot is, probably. Cause like I I do very distinctly remember that there's okay that there's a bit of a dust up um at some point. Um yeah. So well, also that we'll continue to not understand why Leiden is quite so desperate to be in Newspeak Graces again, considering how much Neve has lashed out at her. Yeah, like okay. I can understand why she would like want to have a relationship with her sister. But she seems to have this, like, misplaced guilt, I guess. That, at least partly because Neve kept telling her that it was her fault that Kieran had to be sent away. And they would have been happy otherwise. Like, no, you wouldn't, dude. No, you wouldn't. But alright. Like, we would have run away together. Yeah, that would have just made it worse. But alright. Cool. Misplaced guilt, exactly. Yeah. He's like, okay. Just taking it at face value of, Neve had a lover that no one was supposed to know about. And they found out because, inadvertently or otherwise, Layden said something, right? Even within that context, she didn't say squat. She just couldn't keep her brother out of her head. So really, if you're going that route, if you're trying to blame somebody for your own poor life choices and stuff, because, your uncle was a dumbass and didn't tell you, hey, this guy, yeah, you're related, don't bang him. Like, come on. Which just is a weird concept, honestly. But if that's the reality that you're working in, right? Like, at that point, it's your brother's fault. Because, he's the one that actually told everybody. Sorted. Yeah, exactly. Be mad at Sean. Like, your sister has routinely, from the sounds of it, gotten the brunt of all of your aggro weirdness. Just, like, maybe stop with that for now? Thanks? How about that? Like, you're just mad that no one will love you. Really? Really? That's the thing that you decide you want to use to try and mess with her? Like, she's already out here, like, surprised that some dude's trying to, like, pay attention to her. It's like, yes. How do I deal with a situation where I feel slighted? Completely annihilate my sister's sense of, like, anything. Because that works. And, like, I can understand if the dynamic between them used to be, like, a really caring, like, sibling relationship and stuff, and over the years it's kind of deteriorated, and she wants to try and get that back. But even within that context, there's only, like, there's certain lines where it's just, I'm done. I'm done, and this is it. Nope, nope. No. Which, okay, fair. But she's still trying to do the thing, so I don't know. Because, yeah, with all of that, Sean doesn't get yelled at once. Now, is that because he's the dude? Or is that supposed to be a plot device of, like, she doesn't feel valued and, like, respected at home, so therefore is more likely to be okay with just hanging out with a bunch of random dudes who've kidnapped her, because at least that's having a purpose and having something to do where she's technically respected for what she can do. Which, taking it in that context, seems a bit contrived. You know? Just a little bit. Perhaps. I don't think Layden felt she wasn't respected at home. Okay. Well, yeah. It's. Yeah, no, you have a point. It did sound like from a couple of passages, though, that she didn't really. Well, no. It didn't seem like she, there's a phrase, or a word, or something that I don't remember. But yeah, no, she was respected well enough, but there was, like, extenuating circumstances and stuff, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say. But yeah. Alright. So, there's that. Do we carry on with 2 more chapters for next week? Yeah. Let's do that. Let's plan for 2 chapters for next week and go from there. Sound good? And do you still want to buddy read Dampmere in October? Yeah, let's do that.
Are you gonna eat something before you go?
Yeah.
Okay.
Class doesn't start until 7.
What?
Class doesn't start until 7.
Yeah, it's 5:30.
So as long as I have half an hour to get there. Anyway. So, there's that. Yeah, so I'm being summoned for food time. But yeah. So there's that. We'll see what kind of shenanigans are in there. Because, forewarning, being that I vaguely remember what happens in that. It for a hot minute there, Dampmere, like that series was a favorite, and it was the same era that I was reading this, and the collected works of Alice Brochard, so I don't know. We'll see. We'll see, for that. I mean, hell, I might... Would doing a video that's just, like, critiquing, teen me's, like, taste in literature be a thing of interest at all? I don't know. We will see if it stands the test of time. We will be messaging our reactions. Alright, I'm good. I'm good with that. Yeah, I know. Hope you mind on that. Yeah, we'll see. Just cause, like, yeah. One says bring on the salt. Okay. Cause, yeah, and also, I know part of the, like, I know part of the potentially negative response. Yeah. Oh yeah, no. If I was doing that, it would be in the context of like, this is what I thought of it at the time, versus what I think of it now, and like break down particular reasons and stuff. Because like for some of it, it's the character is the age that I was at the time of reading it. So, regardless of the context and plot and stuff, I was, like, more a fan of it just from that. So, I don't know. We'll see. The 16-year-old thinking and choices are more believable. Yeah, exactly. So, like, in hindsight, there are certain things that I would interpret differently, but to the mind of a 16-year-old, yeah, totally. Seems legit. Okay. So, yeah. I don't know. We'll see. That might be a thing. It might not be. Either way, more book reviews are coming shortish. So. On top of which, like, as I was looking through old files and stuff, I found a bunch of random video clips and stuff from when I was recording Jesse. If we had to teach Romeo and Juliet now, we'd be super tempted to start with a mini survey of all the psychology on why this is not true love. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I really don't get the adults who tout Romeo and Juliet as, like, the greatest love story ever. Teens, yeah, okay, fine, whatever. But, like, adults who are teaching it, I don't know. I don't know about that. I'm dubious on that one. But yeah, so, chapters 9 and 10 for next week. And yeah. Any final thoughts? Or shall we end this stream? I realize we haven't rated anyone in, like, ages, but by the time, like, if it's like a game stream or something, then I'm more chill to do that, but by the end of the book club ones, it's, I just want to be offline a lot of the time. We wish you a good evening. Okay. Have a fabulous rest of your evening, friends. I will see you later in the Discord and wherever else. If it lets me actually type. I'm trying to send you a hug. It's not working. Come on. There we go. Hugs for you. Alright. I will see you all next time. Have a fabulous. Oh, thank you much. Yeah, it's a fun time if chaotic. I'm trying to figure if I should bring my crocheted stuff or not. Just because it tends to be a bunch that, like, there are some higher ticket items and stuff, but I don't know. We'll see. We shall see. Anyway, that's all for now. I will see you later. Have a good one. Bye, everybody. Have a good night.